Hello, aspirants. Welcome to this series on the probable questions for the upcoming mains exam. Like we did in our previous class, with respect to GS paper 2, we have done polity and IR. Today we'll be doing some expected or probable questions on GS paper 4. GS paper 4, which is ethics, integrity, and aptitude, is quite a baffling or perplexing subject for many because we generally do not have a base in this subject, which is mainly based on three subjects: philosophy, psychology, and public administration. So most of us, if not all, have we do not have any sort of background in these subjects, generally speaking, but although there will be exceptions to it. So it is one subject where students are found to be at a loss. They feel like they have no clue while answering. They have an assumption that they will be able to solve the questions, and the questions appear like doable at the initial instance. But if we look deeply to write good answers in a competitive exam, we need proper preparation. Now, we have obviously covered the whole course in our regular courses, but here with the paucity of time and with only a couple of, or you can say precisely 4 or 5 days to go for the mains. So here I have accumulated or curated 10 questions or 10 areas from which you need to look into, because the chances of questions being asked from those areas are quite high. And this is coming from my experience of having seen the UPSC papers for the last 10-12 years, and also the last 2 papers of APSC. So let's start. So as you can see in your screens, the first topic that is important for us is the topic of ethics and morality. Etu moi kyo koisu karon joa 2 বছৰত আমি দেখা পালো APSC দেখা পালো যে প্ৰথমতে তো ল আৰু এথিক্সৰ মাজত ডিস্টিংকশন আহিছিলে, তাৰ পিছত আহিছিলে স্কিল এণ্ড ভ্যালুৰ ওপৰত আহিছিলে। So তাতো again it is about your ethics and values. So ethics and values ebar khudile, ethics and law ebar khudile. So ebar ethics and morality report relation to khudhar sambhavya chance bahut beshi ase, the relation between ethics and morality. So we should definitely have a fair idea about it, and briefly I will tell you what is ethics and what is morality. So ethics is again, both ethics and morality are standards of human behavior. Tar basis on ami decide koru je some action is acceptable or not. Now, what is the distinction? The distinction is that ethics, which is based on universal standards or standards of reasoning or standards of critical thinking, so those have universal acceptance, whereas morality although has its place of its own, which is based on individual standards. So you can say the scope of ethics is quite wide, while morality can be subjective depending on the base or the space where you are trying to observe, or you are trying to ascertain the rightness or wrongness of an action. But আমি রিলেশনটো কেনেকৈ এস্টাবলিশ কৰিম? ৰিলেশনটো এটো বুলি এস্টাবলিশ কৰিম যে এতিয়া চাওক, আমাৰ ইনস্টেন্স, আমাৰ এক্সাম্পলস আমাৰ চকুৰ আগতে আছে। The recent incident with the forgery of OBC certificate and physically handicapped certificate by one IS officer. So action has been taken against her. So that is a very good example to distinguish the this difference between ethics and morality. কারণ মরালিটি কি হয়? মরালিটি আমি কৈছো যে আমি তাত অকমান সাবজেক্টিভিটি দি দিছো। আমি কৈছো যে ইয়েস, ইন্ডিভিজুয়াল স্ট্যান্ডার্ডসৰ বেসিছত আমি মরালিটি ডিসাইড কৰো। ইন্ডিভিজুয়াল স্ট্যান্ডার্ডস মানে এটো নহয় যে মোৰ আপোনাৰ ইন্ডিভিজুয়াল স্ট্যান্ডার্ডস, তাতো এটা ভ্যালু standard follow hobo. Mainly it is the societal norms, societal standards that guides your morality at most cases. এটা কি হয় আমাৰ মানে জেনারেল সোসাইটি যদি আমি চাও যে if you consider the value of truth, truth as a value is something that is not regarded very highly. Ami etia eta amar societal moral standard enekwa hoy je mane money and success is revered more than adherence to truth. So because ami amar regular moral standards adherence to truth hok uporar sthanot nothau, hetu karone ami dekha paisu je in public life or in institutions like say UPSC or in public service where you are expected to maintain the highest standards of ethics, which again is based on universal standards, or it is obviously out of critical thinking it is coming. So hey standard to maintain korar karone there is problem. Ami mane simple bhashat kobole gole moi jodi regular life ot jodi moi misa kotha koi thaku, moi hosa right way moi নিজৰ জীৱন যাপন নকৰো, তেতিয়া হলে যেতিয়া মোৰ ওপৰত প্ৰেছাৰ থাকিব, যেতিয়া মই মোৰ ওপৰত এক্সপেক্টেশন থাকিব যে মই হায়াৰ ষ্টেণ্ডাৰ্ডছ অফ বিহেভিয়াৰ শ্ব' কৰিম, তাত মই মানে শ্ব' কৰিব নোৱাৰিব পাৰো বা মেক্সিমাম ষ্টেজত নোৱাৰিম. চ' সেই that is the correlation that we find that yes, although there is a distinction between morality and ethics, but it is seen that if you maintain a good standard of morality, only then you can be anticipated to have the higher standards of ethics. And remember, ethics mane hoise, ethics or basis to hoise critical thinking or oporot ba reasoning or oporot. So ami jetia based on our reasoning, based on our critical thinking, if we ascertain that yes, this is the right thing to do, and critical thinking is not something that comes out of illogical thinking. There is a proper process through which critical reasoning is done. It is the, you can say, the output or outcome of rigorous training, rigorous study, and rigorous exercise, mental exercise. So it is assumed that it will yield or it will guide us in a way which is obviously the right. So amar that is how society has progressed. That is how the great thinkers of the past have done their philosophies. So that has the highest acceptance world over. But morality also has its place, although morality sometimes can be quite limiting for a person, because morality which is generally based on societal norms, so there the critical thinking part is done, or sometimes it is not done, because in the guise of protecting the continued or prevalent belief systems, in the guise of continuing the prevalent practices of living, you tend to assign a moral code to those things. Say, for example, your dowry, or for that matter, bursting of crackers in Diwali. So all these things become part of your moral code in a way, but those cannot be your ethical standards or ethical, if you like put it into the test of ethics, then maybe they won't stand the test. So that is the basic difference. Apnaloke ei difference khini ullekh kori example di morality aru ethics or difference, this definition to koboi je it is, one is based on universal standard, the other is based on more individual standards. Individual mane not only you, maybe it can be the country, the state, or the society that you are living in. Generally, in day-to-day expressions, we see that morality is more in terms of your social norms that you follow, the way of life that you follow. So in ethics, we see when a critical thinking and reasoning is given precedence. So that is why it is the higher standard of behavior that is expected of a person, even in his personal life as well as in his professional life, in his public life. So, for example, as we saw in case of Pooja Khera, that was the name of the IAS officer. So, because it is assumed that her moral standards were not exemplary, so her ethical standards were found to be wanting. That now she is booked under fraudulent act. So, fresh example, we can address this question. Linked with this question, this is again very expected. Because last time, again I will repeat, we got a question asking a distinction between ethics and law, and then also we got a question with distinguishing or like, it wanted to connect the relation between ethics and values or skilled values or the concept. So this is done. Then next আমি 4 নম্বৰটোত আহোঁ। 4 নম্বৰটো যিটো আছে, an unexamined life is not worth living. This is also again আমাৰ এটা syllabus part আছে moral thinkers ওপৰত, তাতে মানে their quotations, their life experiences, those are asked directly in the form of maybe sometimes in examples or in form of quotes. So A2, this is one thing expected. Last year it was Gandhi's quote that came last year or the year before. uh, the world is enough for everyone's need but not for everyone's greed. Similar very popular quote, an unexamined life is not worth living, and it has a special relevance for Assam also. I will tell you how. Now this is actually the basis of ethics, because Socrates is also known as the father of ethics. Socrates কি কৰিছিলে, তেওঁ কৈছিল যে আমি একো বস্তুৱে ব্লাইণ্ডলি মানি ল'ব নালাগে, we should examine it, we should use our critical thinking, we should exercise our wisdom to determine whether something is right or wrong. So he asks us to put everything to question. We should not accept anything blindly. Okay, now I hope you can link it with a, it is very much prevalent in the public life of a country like India and Assam, wherein superstition, false beliefs, all these things are very much part and parcel of our day-to-day life. Okay, so now if you take the example of a reformer like Birubala Rabha of Assam, so the woman who, like, the great woman, she unfortunately died recently. She got the Padma Shri award. I know all of you should be aware of her achievements, her initiatives with respect to uh, fighting against witch hunting, fighting against superstition. All those things are basically, you can say, attestation, or it is a justification of Socratic way of uh, thinking. She also, in a way, her work exemplifies this quote. So you are not supposed to follow something just because everybody around you are following it. You should examine it. You should put it to question. Is it right? Is it logical? Is it something that I should do as a human being? If not, then you should get rid of it. If you find it okay, then you can continue. The point is you should examine everything. So A was to two. Again, this is the basis of ethics. You have live examples with you. So again, this is a very probable question. আমি গোটে ethics or parameter to etu কোটত সোমোই দিব পাৰো। The ethics মানে কি? Ethics মানে examination of ourselves, our beliefs, our actions. So that is how Socrates wanted us to live a good life. He talked about living a good life. He talked about ethics as a means for living a good life, and that is how ethics is relevant for everyone's life. So it to quote, very important. Then third question, which is very much expected, leadership বা civil servant or ক্ষেত্ৰত, what are the qualities that are required for a civil servant? That question is very much repeated. With respect to boldness, with respect to courage of conviction, এইবিলাকৰ ওপৰত question আহিছে আগতে, কিন্তু I am expecting a question on empathy and compassion. Our empathy and compassion are role in civil services. You might get a question. Last time I think impartiality and non-partisanship report ahisile. So same theme or ahar chance repetition or chances are due. You cannot deny it, but chances are less. So we should be ready with the other aspects of the syllabus which has the qualities that are required for a civil servant. So empathy and compassion. Achha, empathy and compassion, I hope you know the literal meaning of it. It is you are putting yourself into somebody's shoes and thinking that if you are in that position, say we have flood everywhere in Assam this time and unfortunate deaths that has happened. So in Equata Khetrot, as a bureaucrat, if you do not show empathy and compassion to the people suffering in your region, then what sort of governance or what sort of administration will you be able to impart? if you are not sensitive to the people's feeling. Now, why is this important? This is important because আজিৰ ডেটত গভৰ্নেন্স বা এডমিনিষ্ট্ৰেশ্যনৰ অৰ্থটো চেঞ্জ হৈছে। এটা সময়ত এনেকুৱা আছিলে যে গভৰ্নমেন্টৰ বা এডমিনিষ্ট্ৰেশ্যনৰ অৰ্থটো যে মানুহৰ ওপৰত আমি এটা প্ৰশাসনিক কন্ট্ৰল মেইনটেইন কৰা, ষ্টেটত অৰ্ডাৰ এণ্ড ষ্টেবিলিটি মেইনটেইন কৰা আছিল। বাট আজি আমি কি কওঁ, আমি the governance or administration should be, it should be citizen centric, it should be citizen responsive. So আজি মোক যদি সুধে why empathy and compassion is important, প্ৰথম কথা হ'ব যে nature of governance or nature of administration change হৈছে। এটা সময়ত it was like, you know, এটা disjoint এটা আছিলে between the people and those in power or those in administration, but now it is a very participative administration that we are running. We are running a very citizen-centric administration. So in this regard, আমি naturally compassion, tolerance এইবিলাক show কৰিবই লাগিব, তেতিয়াহে আমি citizen responsive হ'ব পাৰিম, মানুহৰ সুবিধা অসুবিধাবিলাক বুজি পাম। And another aspect is social justice is a very essential part of administration. Social justice মানে কি? Helping the poor and vulnerable. So আজি আমি বানপীড়িত সকলক যে আমি যিখিনি সাপোর্ট দিছো এজ এন এডমিনিষ্ট্ৰেটৰ, so that is part of social justice. So আমি এতিয়া elite orientation বা মানে একদম বস টাইপ এটিটিউড লৈ পেলাই চাকৰি কৰিব নোৱাৰো, because the nature of administration has changed. এতিয়া আমি হেতু কাৰণে we have to be responsive, we have to show develop trust among them, we have to develop a citizen friendly attitude. এতিয়া তাৰ এটা good example you can cite obviously what is happening in Assam and how the administration in Assam is dealing with the floods. But at the same time, you can also seek the example of Manipur, where in spite of the type of violence that we saw there, the response from the administration was not very citizen friendly or not very citizen centric. So enekwa kisuman example di you can support the idea that yes, empathy and compassion again mane it is the urge for social justice. Manuhor যিখিনি একদম দুৰ্বল মানুহ, যিখিনি একদম মানে মহাত্মা গান্ধীয়ে যেটো মহাত্মা গান্ধীৰ টেলিছমেনত কৈছিলে যে if you are in doubt you should always act to help, sorry, you should act in a way that helps the person who is in the last. So একদম শেষৰ মানুহজনৰ যদি সহায় হয় সেই কামটো কৰক। So both this idea of being empathetic, being compassion, মানে আমি মানুহৰ লগত এডমিনিষ্ট্ৰেশ্যন কৰি মানুহক যাতে মানে এটা কাইন্ড অফ মানে মানুহকো লগত লৈ পেলাই আমি আগুৱাই লৈ যাম। মন কৰিবলগীয়া কথা এইটো যে এডমিনিষ্ট্ৰেশ্যনৰ বা চিভিল সাৰ্ভিসৰ যেটো ট্ৰেডিশনাল আইডিয়া, যেটো ওয়েবেৰিয়ান আইডিয়া বুলি কয়, ম্যাক্স ওয়েবাৰে যেটো ডিডিউস কৰিছিল, the idea of neutral civil services, তাতটো মানে এইটো আছিলে যে আমি মানুহৰ পৰা ডিস্টেন্ট, আমি আফৰৰ পৰা যেনেকে ব্ৰিটিছৰ সময়ত যেনেকে চলিছিল ন, যে it was a distant administration. It believed in this compassionate bureaucracy. এতিয়া তুমি compassionate bureaucracy কথা কও, তাতটো সেই সময়ৰ নিড হেতু আছিলে মানে indifferent hua ba you can say discompassionate hua, because Weberian model it is the belief that emotion jodi involve hoy jay and decision making gets affected. But etia ami ko je no, we are using ami to emotional intelligence or kotha ko je using your emotion in a way that you can govern better. So hetu karone এইবিলাক গোটেইখিনি বস্তু আহি যাব, ইমোশনাল ইন্টেলিজেন্সৰ কথা আহি যাব, how the governance has changed হেতুৰ কথা আহি যাব, আৰু এতিয়া আমি যেটো citizen centric citizen friendly way administrationৰ কথা আমি কওঁ হেতু এইবিলাক কথাও আহি যাব with examples. If you cover it then your answer will be beautiful and you will get the adequate marks. Now coming to politics and ethics, again it is very expected question because recently we had the elections, আৰু আমাৰ মানে যেটো what we call as political attitude বুলি যেটো কম, political attitude বুলি কলে কি বুজা যায়? Political attitude is a part of our syllabus, and political attitude means the attitude that people have towards politics. So general attitude is not very favorable. You are part of the society and you know how people view politics. It is because of the type of socialization that we have had with respect to politics, because it is felt that there is common saying like it is the last bastion of the goons, or you can say the scoundrels, where the scoundrels reside. So ekdom negative perspective ase with respect to politics. But still, ami dekha pao, elections happen, democracy happens, So amar yat ami je negative attitude ase, etu ami ekebare nui kori dibo নোৱাৰো যে why do we have a negative political attitude? It is because of the, you can say, the parochial or feudal mentality amar society thaka, like say identity based mobilization hoy, caste based mobilization hoy, যে আমাৰ আমি কি কওঁ যে ফৰৱাৰ্ড লুকিং বা ৱেষ্টাৰ্ণ কাণ্ট্ৰিজ যেনেকে ৰেচনেল লিবাৰেল মানে মাইণ্ডছেটত বস্তুবিলাক মোবিলাইজেশ্যন হয়, পিপল শুড ভোট অন your civic services that you are getting, the quality of life, the environment, এইবিলাক ইস্যু হ'ব লাগে। বাট ইণ্ডিয়াত পলিটিকেল ইস্যু কোনবিলাক হয়? ৰিলিজন কি, কাষ্ট কি, লেংগুৱেজ কি, এইবিলাকৰ বেচিছত ভোটিং হয়। That is why we see that people have a negative attitude. Then secondly, we can say the huge involvement of money and muscle power in politics also creates a negative attitude towards it. But সেইখিনিতে আমি সমাপ্ত, আমি যদি সেনেকে লিখি দিওঁ, then it will be appearing that আমি মানে we are not appreciative of the good things that are happening in politics. Good things means there is also manifestation of good political attitude, or you can say good, which shows that people have faith in the politics of the day. If you see election or ক্ষেত্ৰত, people come in large number. The conduct of free and fair election is a manifestation of, you can say, good ethics in politics. So সেইটোতে দেখায় ন যে আমাৰ এতিয়া governance বা there is a change in power, but change in power is bloodless or very peaceful, right? Last government of K2 government or 18 Lok Sabha is quite different from the 17 Lok Sabha, but still the transition is quite smooth. Similarly, there is a sense of acceptance and rejection of the result. Then society, there is a high level of democratization. You see instruments like RTI, social audit, these are now integral part of the way the country runs. And whoever party forms the government, even though at political campaigning stage they may say anything, but when they form the government, they adhere to basic principles of the constitution, they adhere to basic fundamentals of the constitutional morality that we have discussed in previous classes. So ami kobo paru je although there are historic factors, the colonial legacies and the nature of Indian society, all these factors are there, but still we can say that there is manifestation of good political attitude, or you can say manifestation of ethics in politics. এইবিলাকতো এটা এক্সাম্পল অফ এথিক্স ন, মানুহে ভোট দিব আহিছে, গভৰ্ণমেণ্ট যেতিয়া চেঞ্জ হৈছে তেতিয়া you are accepting the results, হয় না? এইবিলাক বস্তু, these are evidence of good politics or good ethics in politics. আৰু you know what, there is a big significance of political attitude held by people. Why? Because actually it is a strong determinant of the moral attitude in politics. What type of government a country has is actually what type of attitude the people have. Etia ami jodi ei Arab Spring last decade ot hoisa major political movement bilakor khetrot sao, hebilak ki those are expression of the people's moral attitude towards politics. So mane people, although there is criminalization, there is nexus, there is corruption, but if people's attitude change, then through the machineries, through the existing machineries, politics will change. So that is why it is very important what is the moral attitude of people towards politics. So again, this area is a very possible fertile area where question can come. Next area, obviously very important topic, question can come repeatedly of this topic. It is called emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence mane ki? It is basically if you are able to regulate your own emotions and you are able to behave in a particular manner, in a desirable manner, that is called emotional intelligence. Some prominent thinker is Daniel Goleman. I think you are familiar with all this. It is চাৰিটা dimensional কথা কয়: self awareness, self management, social awareness, social management. Right? You are managing your own emotions as well as you are adapting to or you are having the ability to accommodate others' emotion also, because it is something which is again very important. I mean, traditional governance role to change আছে এতিয়া আমি আতৰত থাকি চলিব নোৱাৰো আতৰত থাকিলে কি হ'ব বেটাৰ নকৰে মই আপোনাৰ কি ইমোশন থাকে বিকজ মই আপোনাৰ লগত কানেক্টেড নাই কিন্তু এতিয়া যেহেতু আমি গুড গভৰ্নেন্সৰ কথা কওঁ এতিয়া আমি যেটা সিটিজেন সেন্ট্ৰিসিটিৰ কথা কওঁ নাও আমি এতিয়া মানুহৰ লগত কাম কৰাৰ কথা কওঁ আপোনালোকে কাইলে কিবা এটা গণ্ডগোল হ'ব আপোনালোকে ডাইৰেক্ট মানুহৰ লগত ফিল্ডত থাকিব সো তেতিয়া তাৰ মানে কি তাৰ মানে আমি we have to show what is called as very important keyword behavioral competence আমি behavioral competence as a civil servant show কৰিব লাগিব আৰু behavioral competence যদি আমি show কৰিব লাগে we need to have the right attitude the right behavior which can only come through the right amount of emotional intelligence because mere intelligence or oh yes IQ and EQ ওপৰতো question আহিব পাৰে intelligence basically is your problem solving ability so আজি আমি intelligent কাক কম কোনে পটককে অংক এটা কৰি দিব পাৰিছে পটককে কিবা এটা বস্তু মনত আহিছে that is intelligence but mere intelligence will not be enough হয় না জ্যাক মায়ে কৈছিলে জ্যাক মা you know Alibaba founder যে as a whole যদি এটা টিমত টোটাল ইন্ডিভিজুয়াল বলে মানুহ আছে সবৰে 140 IQ আছে আৰু সেই 140 IQ থকা যদি এটা টিম ক্ৰিয়েট কৰা যায় গোটেই টিমটোৰ IQ অকল 40 হে হৈ যায় it is because of the lack of ability of people to coordinate with others so similarly if you are forming a team which doesn't have good emotional intelligence then regardless of the talent that it may have it will not be able to perform as a team okay so ami jehetu civil service we work as a team we work with the people we work in a citizen centric manner so emotional intelligence is something which you cannot avoid and remember on top of it look at the amount of stress that a civil service faces এজন civil servant এজনে আপুনি suppose ACS বিষয়া APS বিষয়া এজন হল বা IAS IPS whatever you will face you will be answerable to your superior you will be answerable to the government of the day you will be answerable to the politics of the day you will be answerable to various human rights group that might be involved in whatever action you are doing then you can say the citizens of the country the various social groups civil society groups will be there then there will be various disasters going on like now we have floods and then your peers will also be there you will be answerable to your peers also then right now because corporate sector is quite active I mean public private participation of so the business sector is also one area where business and corporate are also a stakeholder so there also you that party is also there and media is there so as on civil servant iman inequata environment thake so he is so much in the middle of thick of things so there if he doesn't have the necessary behavioral competence then he would not be able to manage disasters, manage protests, manage dissatisfaction among people. So that is why you need a good amount of EQ. আৰু আমাৰ এক্সাম্পল হিচাপে আমি এতিয়া ধৰক কোভিডৰ সময়ত দেখিছিলো মুম্বাইৰ মিউনিচিপাল কমিশনাৰ was in news হয় না ইকবাল সিং চাহল the way he handled it all those things and আমাৰ অসমতো কীৰ্তি জল্লি কামৰূপৰ DC she was in news in the way she dealt with COVID so all these examples are there in front of you you can use it he will definitely directly if you don't get a question on EQ emotion EI apni use koribole jaga pabo so use it now next topic crisis of conscience mane ki crisis of conscience mane basically conscience mane ki what is conscience mane amar level of moral development because ami kiba ta bostu bhal ne beya etu amar the way our mindset develop or our mind develops we that acts as a guide that acts as a ethical guide so আমাৰ এটা moral development হয় লৰেন্স কোলবাৰ্গৰ কথা যদি আপোনালোকে পঢ়িছে in theory in এই টপিকটোত লৰেন্স কোলবাৰ্গে কৈছিলে যে the human being develop or moral development in human beings happen in 3 levels pre conventional level conventional level or post conventional level So post-conventional level, you achieve moral autonomy, where you can take autonomous moral decisions because your moral spectrum or your moral parameters are well developed. Now, for a civil servant, crisis of conscience ketia hoy jetia eta extreme level of situation apunar dhorok your self image is destroyed or your dignity is put into question, and jibilak parameter apunar moral conscience ase je okay ebilak kam to koribo noaroe sebilako jetia hoi jay ba you are like totally, you are acting or you are aware that what you are doing is bad, but still you are doing it. It kind of hits your moral conscience, and then crisis of conscience happens. Suppose corruption involved, but inherently he may not, his moral conscience might not, or you can say it is strongly rejecting that action, but due to external pressure or due to inability to resist external pressure, he is not able to act according to his conscience. So we can say that crisis of conscience happens. It is basically the extreme level situation. You can say আমি এথিক্যাল ডিলেমাৰ কথা পঢ়ো, এথিক্যাল ইস্যুজৰ কথা পঢ়ো, মানে এথিক্যাল ডিলেমাৰ সিচুৱেশ্যনতে ক্ৰাইসিস অফ কনসাইন্স হয়। মানে we see many people, many top bureaucrats committing suicide, police officers committing suicide, and this is classic example of crisis of conscience. Again, very important, linked with the idea of emotional intelligence, tar logote link, because again it is associated with your moral development, so that aspect will be highlighted. Tar pisot ahile conflict of interest, another very important topic which I feel can be asked independently. Crisis of conscience mane ki jetia amar kind of competing loyalties thake, competing loyalties mane ki as suppose মই এটা জায়গাৰ ডিসি হয় আৰু মই কোবাৰ কিবা এটা প্ৰজেক্টৰ কন্ট্ৰাক্ট দি আছো আৰু ধৰক মোৰ ভাইটি বা মোৰ কোনোবা ৰিলেটিভে ওয়ান অফ দা কন্ট্ৰাক্টৰ্স, সো দ্যাট ইজ এ potential conflict of interest. বা মই কোবাত বলে জাজ হৈ আছো and trying a case, and one of the parties are somebody known to me, so that is basically conflict of interest. Our constitution আছে কিছুমান provision যেনেকৈ আমি অফিস অফ প্ৰফিটৰ কথাটো পঢ়ো আৰ্টিকেল 105 সেইটো এটা conflict of interest idea যে legislature should hold the executive to account, কিন্তু legislature যদি account executiveৰ পৰা দৰমহা লৈ থাকে তেতিয়া হলে executive question কেনেকৈ কৰিব, এনেকুৱা কথা এটা আছে। সো হেতু আইডিয়া অফিস অফ প্ৰফিটৰ আইডিয়াটো থাকে। সো conflict of interest is again a ethical issue because it is clearly যেটো আমাৰ professional ethics ৰ লগত related, যে আমি যেটো আমাৰ মানে basic any action or any profession that we are in, if that profession demands us to act in a particular way, it has certain professional obligations, but we are not able to fulfill those obligations because of some other considerations, and that creates conflict of interest. বিভিন্ন example আছে, মাজতে সেই সৌৰভ গাঙ্গুলীৰ example টো ওলাইছিল, BCCI sponsor was one and he was advertising for another company, so it was conflict of interest. Okay, so conflict of interest or what, you might get a question. তাৰপিছত আহি গ'ল governance, good governance and ethics in governance. Another very important term, important distinction that you should know. Again, this is in the larger context of the scheme of things, because etia ami basically governance boli kole it is a very you can say all encompassing term. It includes the process. Basically governance mane ki, governance mane decision making government jetia decision making law, that is called governance. Problem solving by the government is called governance. Etia agote eta samoy asile jetia government e okol government e loy, baki mane amar society, civil society hok, corporates hok, they were just non-existent or they were like at the margins. But etia after 1991, after the reforms, we are seeing what we are seeing, greater role of civil society, greater role of corporates. So azikali ami ki ko stakeholder governance kotha ko, so we see that all government of India is not the party or government of Assam is not the party, there are other parties also. Say aji eta Tata ase amar yat semiconductor project banai ase, that is part of the decision making process. So you can say tato mane the other stakeholders also come into picture. So hetu karone ami governance ba ethics in governance ba good governance or kotha koisu. In true sense governance and good governance or major distinction thakibo nalage, but ami for practical purposes ami eta distinction koru. Good governance and governance World Bank e define kore, mane again, this is a value good governance বুলি কৈ দিয়া লগে লগে এটো এটা western driven value loaded term মানে কি যে হেতু তেওঁলোকে কিছুমান প্যাৰামিটাৰ দিছে transparency accountability এইবিলাক democracy so in a way West is defining good governance. West is saying that non-democratic countries are not good government. So again, that is subjective in some manner. It is debatable. So it talks about quality of judgment. Governance is a neutral term. Governance মানে হৈছে যে how you are solving your day-to-day problem. How you are taking decision as a government. So that participation hobo pare nohobo pare. But good governance boli jeta koi diu, it is a value-loaded term because it is defined by the West, mainly the World Bank, and it defines in terms of 8 parameters. I hope you know the 8 parameters of good governance: transparency, accountability, voice, and anta ase. Now, coming to the fact that what is ethics in governance? Ethics in governance, basically, it is the universal standard. It is the fact that it is the acceptance of the fact that all stakeholders are involved. So, ethics in governance, governance at all stakeholder level. Adi corporate governance ahibo, NGO governance ahibo, civil society governance ahibo, amar private sector government or governance ase. So you can say for all stakeholders, if there is a uniform standard or uniform level playing field, that is called ethics in governance. Or so all stakeholders are participating in a responsible manner. Adi problem to ki hoy aji ami ko government sector khetrot there should be accountability, there should be RTI ebilak ase, কিন্তু private sector khetrot to nai, private corruption to bahut hoy. Etia question to etu, the moot point is this: if you are participating, that you should also take responsibility, you should be accountable. So the concept of ethics in governance come etu karone adikali corporate governance ebilak kotha newsot থাকে বা these are dominant themes in governance, because governance all government karone nohoy, etia all other stakeholders are also, because they are part of the governing process, so they also have their responsibility. So ethics in governance or ethical governance as a theme comes into the picture. Not rakhibo governance and ethical governance are major distinction to it. The governance is a neutral term, it is about how you are taking decision, whereas ethics in governance is basically a modern phenomena wherein we are accepting the fact that all stakeholders participate in the governing process. So when it is accepted that the government will be accountable, the government will act in an ethical manner, so it is also accepted that all other stakeholders, like say your private sector, your civil society, your media, all these organizations also should act in an ethical manner. So that is the idea of ethics in governance. Okay? So similarly, corporate governance, another important theme, corporate social responsibility. Adrian Cadbury is the father. So it is basically the way a company is governed, the way a company is managed, directed, and controlled. So decision making, or basically, profit orientation was the main idea of a corporate. But now we are talking about 3 P's: people, planet, and profit. Profit all about people and planet also comes into picture. Because in the impending years, we are seeing many corporate frauds, many corporate wrongdoings, unethical practices. There are multiple examples, like so we are seeing changes in the way corporate is structured, the way they function, board of directors or the type of ethics that is expected, neutrality, and certain standards of independence that is accepted. So those are meant to, in a way, incorporate certain ethical practices. You can take the example of Klaus Schwab, World Economic Forum, or Zizon Hedi, chief main manhujon World Economic Forum Davos. So he talks about stakeholder capitalism. He talks about all shareholder karone nohoy capitalism. Capitalism should be for all stakeholders. Tate jikhini shareholder nohoy teolokor eta stake ase. So responsible capitalism kotha koy. So it's about bringing good governance practices in corporate. The idea is that ki corporate or khetrot ba business, private business or khetrot jitu eta typical manhor behavior is ki eto to more private enterprise hoy, you have nothing to do with it. No, we have everything to do with it, because although you are a private enterprise, although your private money is involved, but it is acting in a public sphere. It is using public resources. It is putting the waste in your environment. It has negative externality. So You cannot function in a vacuum. Nothing can be purely private. There is a, you can say, when you talk about the fact that a বস্তুটো যে any private enterprise has necessarily a public stake, এইটো ৰিয়েলাইজেশ্যনে হৈছে corporate social responsibility. CSR যেটো আমাৰ company sector আছে, যে 2% of profit will be spent in corporate responsibility. So that idea basically comes from the fact that because company is using, or any corporate is using public resources, so they also have a responsibility to pay back. So that is the idea. ডাঙৰ leaders like Ratan Tata, Narayan Murthy, they talked about the fact that corporate governance practices in a outsource কৰাতকে, কোনোবা স্কুল এখন বনাই দিয়া, কোনোবা ৱাটাৰ পাম্প এটা বনাই দিয়াতকে, সেইটোতো কৰিব পাৰিলেতো ভালে কথা। তাৰ লগতে you should incorporate good corporate governance practices within your company, মানে within your company. That is more important. Transparent হ'ব লাগে, accountable হ'ব লাগে, board of directors মানে আমাৰ ইয়াতো আৰু ফেমিলি ৰান টাইপ হয় ন, বিজনেছেছ বিলাক, দে আৰ লাইক এ ফেমিলি এন্টাৰপ্ৰাইজ। হাৰ্ডলি ডু উই সি ইণ্ডিপেণ্ডেন্স in management of business. The owner, আমাৰ যেনেকে আমি উবাৰৰ যিজন ফাউণ্ডাৰ, he was taken out, Appleৰ founder taken out, আমাৰ ইয়াত ইণ্ডিয়াত সেনেকুৱা হ'ব পাৰে নেকি? At this time though we can't see anything like that happening. So that is the idea of corporate governance. Again, next ahi gol the actually this is যেটো আমাৰ এটা পাৰ্ট আছে quality of service delivery বা citizen charter বা way আমাৰ মানে the way service delivery happens in India. So আমাৰ what is the model of service delivery that India advocates? The Sebottam model of service delivery. I hope you know this. Sebottam is the quality of service delivery. তিনটা বস্তু আছে তাতে। You will benchmark your services. Benchmarking of services, মানে ধৰক মানুহক পেনশন দি আছো, what is the number of days, কিমান টাইম লাগিব, কিবা ফিজ আছে নেকি, তাৰপিছত grievance redressal mechanism এটা থাকিব, again complaint mechanism, and then capacity building. These are the three. মানে you will capacity building মানে training, you will improve the skill of your workforce. So article আমাৰ mission karmayogi and all these things are there. So in country, মানে following up on the idea of quality service delivery, we get the idea of, again, the extension of this idea is citizen charter. Citizen charter মানে কি? Basically it is talking about a charter for the citizen. Charter মানে কি? আপোনাৰ কি কি অধিকাৰ আছে, আপোনাৰ কি কি পাব, এটা অফিসত গলে আপুনি কি কি বস্তু পাব। So it is basically a মানে joint preparation, it is a jointly prepared document citizen আৰু government মানে create কৰে, and what does it hold? It holds the services that will be delivered to the citizen through citizens' participation. Purpose to keep quality of service বা sebottam to borwa. So it is a understanding between the citizen and government to ensure that service delivery happens in a particular manner. So আগৰ idea কি আছিল? Citizen are like a passive recipient. Now they are the active participant in governance. That idea is circumscribed within the idea of citizen charter. The idea of serving state. As our PMA called, PM is the Pradhan Sevak. So that idea to the governance or idea to how government is idea to. So citizen charter, again, it is treating the citizen as the king. It is ensuring that value for money. কিমান মানে আমাৰ বিভিন্ন অফিসেস বিলাকত আপুনি citizen charter দেখা পাব। কি কি সার্ভিস এটুত আছে, কিমান টাইমত হ'ব, কোনজনৰ ওচৰত যাব, গ্রিভেন্স ৰিলেচনৰ কাৰণে কাৰ ওচৰত যাব, এজ এ হোল যদি আকৌ তাৰপিছত যদি you are dissatisfied with the whole process, where will you approach? So everything that the citizen might require, those are the things that is there. Okay. তাৰপিছত the sebottam etu kolo RTI, again another important area where question might ask. I hope RTI is to all the features of RTI, kiman diner bhitor hoy, what are the exceptions to RTI, national security and all, it is not covered. What are the issues like the political parties are not covered under RTI, ebla kotha thake. RTI obviously it is considered as the second independence movement buliu koy kisumane, RTI too. So RTI is important. Corruption, another theme যোৱাবাৰ আহিছে, আকৌ আহিব পাৰে। Corruptionৰ ক্ষেত্ৰত I will suggest, মানে obviously you will have your own ideas, but why corruption happens in India, this idea, you should be clear with it. Actually we can assign 5 causes. The chief causes that that you can say exacerbates corruption or encourages corruption in India. The primary cause is social. Social cause মানে কি? Social cause টো আপোনালোকে ক'ব লাগে যে ইণ্ডিয়াত যিহেতু মই এইটো মৰেলিটি আৰু এথিক্সৰ ডিষ্টিংশ্যনতো কৈছো যে মৰেল ষ্টেণ্ডাৰ্ডছ corruption লৈ পেলাই ইমান হাই নহয়. There is no strong moral rejection of corruption. That is one of the major reason that we see that corruption is not, you can say, taken as a serious issue in Indian society. Look at the pomp and show in Indian weddings. Look at the various, donations that Indians make. So if you just apply your mind, you can find out, no legitimate way can earn such big money. So there are kind of, this, predominant phenomena where corruption is not only tolerated, it becomes kind of a status symbol for many. Right? So although government is taking lots of effort to, you can say, not only punish the guilty, but also so demonstrable punishment. That belege mane kind of eta deterrence, deterrence format mane manhor paper di manhor to humiliate kind of kori, that is kind of a deterrent. But still we see it's a public behavior for, you can say, consumption, conspicuous consumption or attitude. Our general, the taste that we have, the social programs or social ideas that we have, all these things are in a way encouraging corruption because it is fulfilling our social goals of, rising up the social ladder, showing it as a status symbol. So social rejection নথকাটো এটা major reason. Second, economic reason আছে. Economic reason কি হয়? The fact that আমাৰ ইয়াত বহুত বেছি resource concentration হৈ আছে. Oxfam reportত কৈয়ে থাকে যে 1%, top 1% hold how much of resources of India. That world over that is evident, and in India also that is very stark. Although we have directive principles which state that Article 39 BNC that states that there will not be concentration of wealth, but we see that there is economic concentration, there is crony capitalism, and that results in তেতিয়া কি হয়, যেতিয়া কনচেন্ট্ৰেটেড হৈ থাকে তেতিয়া ইকনমিটো গ্ৰো হ'ব নোৱাৰে, কম্পিটিশন নাথাকে, তাৰ মানে ৰিচ বিকাম ৰিচাৰ এণ্ড পুৱাৰ বিকামছ poorer, employment opportunities get reduced. So you can say that encourages, or you can say corruption আকৌ corruption breed কৰে, যিখিনি ধনী হৈ আছে সিহঁতি আৰু বেছি corrupt কৰি বেছি ধনী হয়, whereas the poor keeps on staying poor. তাৰপিছত political reason আছে. Political reason mainly the election, which is the mother of all corruption in a way. The amount of money that is involved, that is self-evident. The electoral malpractices, populist policies, the kind of freebies, reverie beliefs that our prime minister কৈছে বহুত ক্ষেত্ৰত, the policy level corruption হয়. তাৰপিছত ধৰক আপোনাৰ এইবিলাক বফোৰ্স, these are classic example. So it is rampant. Then criminalization of politics. Milan Vaishnav এখন কিতাপ লিখিছিল When Crime Pays. So there he mentioned this fact that populist policies and criminal politician nexus, it is encouraging corruption. Then administrative and legal reasons are said. Amar prashasonic corruption is you can say it is linked with our colonial past. It is how যেতিয়া এটা প্ৰশাসন বেছি centralized হ'ব, corruption হোৱাৰ chances বেছি হয়. আমি আপোনালোকে হিষ্ট্ৰীত যদি পঢ়িছে, during the dual government in Bengal, it's 1760s, when Robert Clive was there, the amount of corruption in East India Company was huge. The misuse of dasta, এইবিলাক বস্তু পঢ়িছে, যেতিয়া বস্তুটো চেন্ট্ৰেলাইজ হৈ যাব, একাউণ্টেবিলিটি কমি যাব, মানুহক এটা পইণ্টত থাকিব, চ কৰাপশ্যনৰ প্ৰবেবিলিটি বাঢ়ি যাব. Look at the laws. তাৰপিছত administrative corruption, why is it encouraged? Because centralized. তাৰপিছত যেটো কয় আমাৰ discretionary power. তাৰপিছত complex laws. This creates the necessary conduits for conducting corruption. Nexus create হয়. তাৰপিছত আমাৰ কিছুমান moral বা attitudinal problem আছে. attitudinal problem এটাতো socio cultural কথা কলোৱে, the social life that we have, the type of way we live our life, marriages, functions, তাতে আমি যিমান খৰচ কৰো, তাৰ লগতে the nature of socialization। আমিতো অলৰেডি হিউমেন ভেলুজৰ ক্ষেত্ৰত যদি আপোনালোকে পঢ়িছে, তাততো socializationৰ যিটো মানে how schools socialize you, how মানে education system, parents, your civil society, so এইবিলাকত the nature of socialization that we gain, that is the way আমাৰ moral development হয় ন, যিটো লৰেন্স কলবাৰ্গে কৈছে moral development হয়, আমাৰ conscience develop হয়, that process is not very robust, so that results in child growing up with less morally strong ability to withstand the challenges of corruption, because even parents are quite unsure. Hardly do we see any parents talking to their children saying no, you should not do corruption, or corruption is a bad thing. That is not how majority of the parents, or those are not the part of discussion in schools and civil society. As children grows up, they hardly find any avenues or any exposure which highlights the wrong impacts of corruption. So naturally they will not have at least positive attitude, nathakileo negative attitude nathak. So people kind of have a perception about corruption that everyone is corrupt, and if you are not corrupt, it is because you have not got the opportunity. That is the way Indians, or Indian society reacts to corruption. So it results in massive loot, massive you can say misuse of public money, and benefits do not reach the poor. Rahul Rajiv Gandhiয়ে কৈছিলে ন, টকা খৰচ কৰিলে 15 পইচাহে মানুহৰ তাত পৰেগে। So C Rangarajane কৈছিলে India grows by less than 2% because of corruption. India is considered a soft state. Gunnar Myrdal বুলি এজনে মানে western scholar হয়, Asian drama বুলি এখন কিতাপত তেওঁ কৈছিল India is a soft state because of corruption. So these are strong issues, and actually we need a collective resolve in society to tackle corruption. So it is not about law, আমাৰ মানে law to strict কৰি দিলো, মানুহক এনেকে ধৰি দিলো, তেতিয়া corruption শেষ হৈ নাযায়। Socialization process as a whole society, how it sees corruption, আমাৰ socio-cultural practices বিলাক, আমাৰ socialization practices বিলাক, what corruption against a strong মানে এটা ৰেজিস্ট্যান্স থাকিব লাগিব, সিলেবাছত আহিব লাগিব, ল'ৰা ছোৱালীৰ লগত কথা পাতিব লাগিব এইবিলাক বস্তুৰ বিষয়ে, যে see this is not the way to live, so this is not the way to earn. That is how we should. But এতিয়া আমি কি দেখা পাওঁ, conspicuous consumption, no, how rapidly we are seeing, like what values are promoted by showing rampant pomp and show in weddings and all those extravagant celebrations. So all these things are highlighting, or you can say bringing out wrong values to the society. So having said that, I hope this is useful to you. Maybe it has stretched a little bit longer than I intended, but it will be helpful for you, please, if you are, for those who are preparing for this coming exam, and in general also you might find it useful. So all the best. Thank you.